Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wandering Podcast, where we take advisement from outside the box. I'm Rihanna Ritter, your host. I'm an intuitive, sexuality, and authentic expression coach. Are you an accomplished professional who plays the part of having it all figured out? Who's strong for everyone else but feels lonely, misunderstood, like you can't tell anybody the truth about how stressed you are, how not passionate you are about your life and all that you've created? I guide my clients to deep, lasting fulfillment. I re-engage them with their bodies, their pleasure, their desire. I help them align to enjoy fulfillment and prosperity in all areas of their lives.
Today, my guest is Dr. Lisa Payan Berlin, licensed hypnotherapist and CEO of Parents Anonymous. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So how did you know that you needed to start Parents Anonymous? I love that name.
I didn't start Parents Anonymous.
Oh, okay.
Parents Anonymous was started in 1969. I've been the president and CEO for 32 years, since 1992.
Wow.
But Parents Anonymous has an interesting history. It was started by a parent who was out of control, needed help, and her child was removed from her care, one of her children, and she realized that she walked into a mental health clinic and she says, help me. I'm not the parent I want to be. My child is having all these issues. And she was seeking help, not judgment, not blame, not shame, which often is hoisted on parents, but help me. She didn't say she was perfect. She didn't say her kid was perfect. And blaming people just isolates them even more when they're trying to ask for help. So after she went to traditional therapy, she said that wasn't working. And so she worked with this social worker, and they came up with the idea of the Parents Anonymous group, which is a weekly support group that started in 1969.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I totally understand the journey of recognizing, I'm not showing up as a parent the way that I want to. We so often are just repeating the patterns that our parents have handed down to us because we don't know anything else, right? And so, yeah. So how does it?
Go ahead.
How does it work?
So it works several different ways. So behind me, you can see we run the National Parent and Youth Helpline. So people can call parents, children, or youth. You're with your boyfriend's kids on the weekend, anybody in a parenting role, a grandmother who's raising children, an aunt, even if you're worried about your cousin's kids and you're trying to help them out. So first of all, you can call the helpline 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can call it, you can text it at 855-427-2736. We speak to people in 240 languages, so there's no barrier. And you can call about anything, struggling at work, a recent divorce, child's behavior at school has just escalated. You yourself feel like you may be slipping into a serious depression, or you think your child is suicidal, or there's been a fentanyl outbreak or a school shooting. Think about all the things we as parents face every single day, whether it's now we have this terrible flooding on the East Coast. Families are displaced. People are dead. People can't even be found. And people are worrying, should I send my child to school? Do we have the threat? Is this storm coming our way? So we as parents are constantly looking out for our kids and looking out for the entire family. And there's a big burden on parents. So we have an expression in Parents Anonymous that we say asking for help is a sign of strength, because we want people to ask. And you might ask your pediatrician, you might ask your best girlfriend, you might ask your mother-in-law, and they say something that doesn't fit for you. Keep asking, find somebody else to ask, because the help you may need is very unique to you. And I wouldn't presume some people love being in it. So then they can go to a Parents Anonymous group, depending on where you live in this country. So we have weekly support groups that are free. The parents attend weekly, and their children, it's a whole family strengthening program. You could have 10 parents there and 25 kids there. And the children are divided by their age group into separate groups. And they do activities that are related to our monthly themes to build their self-confidence, to deal with any issues that they're dealing with in their own lives. So it's a complete family strengthening program. So it's got a very unique legacy. we don't exist face to face in every single state or, during COVID, we were doing a lot of online work. We're going back to face work. But we believe that the future depends on parents. My children did not drop from the heaven, and they surely didn't grow them in the garden. They came from my husband and I, but they could have come from somebody, other human beings. And I think we need to value that the future depends on parents. We talk a lot about our future depends on children. Yes, they are the next generation, but we need to be there as parents, friends, neighbors, community to support when parents are struggling, when kids are struggling, to have that empathetic ear. We just finished Suicide Prevention Month in September. And one thing we know about research is that if we listen to our friends, kids, neighbors, colleagues, and they say they don't want to live anymore, we need to take that very seriously and help them seek help, because we can prevent suicide. We can. It's when people say, oh, you're just having a hard day, go take a bath, or it's going to blow over, or a child, starts to change their behaviors and people aren't watching. Oh, boys will be boys. Oh, she's just not very talkative. No. We as parents need to be the ears and eyes of everything. And for many people, if they're a single parent, they may have other people in their family who are significant, who their child talks to. So, when they say it takes a village to raise a family, it surely does. It's hard to do it all alone. But we need supportive systems and supportive listeners. The Surgeon General just came out on August 28th, and he said, we have an emergency with parents. And I'm like, I'm so glad you're talking about parents, because adults look like this, right? And children look like that. And I'm like, well, what about the adults who are parents? And he said, they're more depressed, more anxious than ever, and we're not doing enough for parents in this
Yeah,
country.
absolutely. Parenting can feel extremely isolating because there is so much judgment, like you mentioned. And also, we used to live in tribes where we'd had a village helping us raise our
Exactly.
children. And now we're moving into a house with the two parents and the kids, and we're spending so much time with just each other. And so when we have like a toxic trait as a parent, because that's all we've learned, we're keeping it a secret a lot of the time because we're so ashamed, instead of finding the help and being noticing, oh, this is not supportive of my kid, I want my child to be happy. How do I change this trait without feeling like I'm going to have my child taken from me, or
Exactly.
I'm
And I am a Caucasian woman. I don't know if you are. And so, I'm in a privileged group. People don't Black and brown people are reported to the child welfare system for everything and anything. 85% of the teacher reports for supposedly abuse and neglect are unfounded, and they're just traumatizing because we've got to change everybody's mindset. I mean, if a parent comes to class and say, we're homeless, you're going to call the police? No, we have to call the helping systems. And the
yeah,
schools might not know, and the schools are overwhelmed. You ask any teacher today and said, 2/3 of the kids in the classroom I teach are struggling emotionally, behaviorally. And they're not a therapist. And we gotta teach math, we gotta teach English, we gotta, go out and do this and that. But those kids are 6 hours a day in school. And we don't have the support systems after school. And many parents complain, they want to take my kid out of class to send them to a therapist. Wait a minute, why can't it be after school? Why can't it be in the evening? Why can't it be on Saturday? And I think we need to realize that people have a life, and we don't want the kids' grades to drop because they got pulled out, and everybody's looking at that kid, right?
right.
Oh, why are you going? Are you in trouble? There's no confidentiality. In my kid's elementary school was kind of small, I mean, where are you having this privacy, et cetera? So we need to think about, if we're going to break down these blame and shame barriers, what it really means for the person seeking help, whether they're a youth or a child. They might be afraid to tell anybody. Oftentimes, somebody told me the other day, you know, oh, I think a child called the helpline, and they said they were being bullied on the playground, and there was a proctor, an adult, right? And the adult said, do you want me to report it to the principal? And the kid was scared. He said, no. But the problem
Yeah,
is that the proctor should have never asked, I'm going to take your hand and we're going to go safely out of this situation. I'm going to have somebody substitute for me, and I'm going to the office with you so we can discuss this in a private way, not on the playground. Literally, this child is being bullied every day by this girl at this school. This mom is telling me the story. And I told her, you need to go to the principal yourself
Yeah.
because if you don't intervene in these things, I mean, the child is struggling who's doing the bullying as well as the child. The girl was choking her son.
Oh, wow.
And,
Yeah.
and then they were trying to laugh about it and blow it off. It's like, no, all of these things are serious. And, some schools have done better jobs with anti-bullying programs and try to accept differences and be tolerant. And the sooner you have these kinds of values and conversations, the better off kids are. It's like all these perceptions through social media, TV, the violence all over the place, shapes them as well as what's going on in the family. And they're not talking to you about it, depending on a certain age they are. They're just like, they're talking to their peers and God knows what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
Like some kid
Absolutely.
told me years ago when I worked in the runaway youth movement, said, oh, you can't get pregnant till you're 18. I said, correction. You have sex and you've already had your period. I don't know if I can say this to your viewers. It's
Yeah.
just girl, you will get pregnant. You could get pregnant. She was like, shocked. So the misinformation out there is really for real. Sort of, and kids are afraid at school. They don't want to go in the bathrooms. They don't want to hang out. So safety is a real issue in our communities. So if we don't talk about these things, they just get worse.
Yeah, absolutely. To not talk about what to expect sexually, developmentally, to not
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about, unhealthy kind of relationship dynamics that happen within households, the way that parents speak to each other. Um,
Exactly, exactly. And kids mirror everything. And they also feel they're pulled into the fights of parents. I was just in Newsweek about a stepson who the father wanted him to call the stepmom mom, and he didn't want to call the stepmom mom. And they were trashing his mother. And so he felt
mm,
totally, and they weren't even respecting that this adolescent just wasn't ready to call you mom. It's call you by your first name, whatever. And they weren't even thinking about his feelings and what the impact was. They really were thinking about, well, they thought this would make the stepmom feel good. Well, you know, I'm not ready to call you mom is okay. And I think that those kinds of things sometimes, even dealing with a toddler and the kinds of ways we deal with the push and pull to do the homework, get your shoes on, we got to go to school. Like you feel like as a parent, like 70% of your time is giving orders. Get dressed,
mhm.
let's eat, finish your breakfast, get in the car, we got to go, we got to be late, and it's like, when do you have this downtime where you're just lying in the grass and giggling or looking at the sky and making up stories or things that don't cost money, that aren't technology oriented, getting out in nature. We know 15 minutes of sunshine helps all of our serotonin rise. All these things doesn't cost a dime. It's like meditation. In every Parents Anonymous group, we start with meditation, even for the 4-year-olds. They have like a 1 or 2 minute meditation. They learn how to meditate, how to ground yourself. This grow gray matter in our brain reduces anxiety and depression. It doesn't cost anything. You don't have to go to college. You don't have to go to a training course. Just come and listen to the meditation. And then some of the parents, we give them recordings. They can take them with them if they want. Some parents would play the recordings on the way to school. Oh yeah, I need all the kids in the back seat, front seat. They're driving. They're not doing the meditation because they're paying attention.
Yeah.
But those things are easy to learn. There's so much positive information out there, like getting in a struggle with your kid about their music or whatever. I mean, obviously, watching who their friends are, you need to set values that relate to your family and what is important in your family. And parents sometimes need to work it out. Oh, he's the lenient one, I'm the strict one. She's the lenient one, I'm the strict. Well, the parents, or it could be a group of step parents, it could be grandparents, whoever's doing the parenting needs to really come together and figure out what are the parameters for their family. And
Yeah.
as kids
Yeah.
get older, we highly recommend have a family meeting. Have them come up with rules, responsibilities. There's a Harvard study that came out. Kids who do chores are very successful in their career and their life. And you think it's like a simple thing, but it helps to build self-confidence. We're not talking about the 4-year-old cooking dinner. We're talking about the 4-year-old learning how to line up their shoes that are color coded or their shirts, because then they're learning colors and other kinds of things. What your 10-year-old can do, what your 17-year-old can do, totally different. But everybody participating in the family as doing a chore Okay, not just I clean up my room, but are you doing something for the whole family that benefits? Makes you
Right.
feel like you're in a team approach and you can depend on each other. And I think that's the continuous love and support is so important. And also, this kid, my son is this way, my daughter's that way. You know, the twins are this way. Also, understanding the differences in your children. We have a very busy, fast-paced life. You work, you go to school, you got kids, you got to cook, you got to eat, you got to drive, you got to have a carpool. I mean, it's a nightmare. I mean, it's like getting enough sleep. Oh, that's funny, you know. And I'm not just talking when they're babies. I'm talking about
Oh
when their
yeah.
lives get complicated. You know, and people feel the pressure. Housing is so expensive now. You know, everything. You go to the grocery store, you're like shocked about eggs. I went to the grocery store the other day. I couldn't believe the eggs were so expensive still. Eggs are
Yeah.
protein, but you're kidding me. The 3.99 dozen eggs doesn't exist anymore because whatever. The egg
Yeah.
flu and the corporate gouging, pricing, you know, inflation is low. Why are the eggs so high? So, and housing, you know, we're headquartered in California, but all around the country we hear about housing shortages. And, you know, people are living many families together because the rents are so high and the accessibility to housing. And I'm not even talking about the unhoused population. I'm talking about um, people who are still trying to have a safe environment that they can live in, a safe neighborhood, um, you know, a place where their kids can go out and play. You talked about like in the old days, like, you know, there'd be some grandma on the stoop, right? And everybody go outside, running around, playing kickball and all this sort of stuff. And some grandma's like, watching, you all doing the right thing here? You know, and so when you talked about how we were raised more in like tribal groups, like we were people, parents weren't like thousands of miles away, right? Your cousins
Right.
were living near each other. And now we have much more of a transient population for work, for other things. And so people aren't living close to their families. And do they have those support networks? Or even in their own church or synagogue or mosque? What is community to you? What is community to other people? And, you know, people feel very isolated. I don't have any time to socialize or have community. They, you know, I'm just staying afloat, which
Yeah.
is
I find that especially true in Southern California. I grew up in Lake Tahoe, which is a mountain town, and we very much prioritize our relationships and our the beauty, the nature, our free time. We might call into work because it's such a beautiful day and the lake looks amazing and we need to go jump in it and we need to take some time off. But here, Southern California, everybody is on this schedule and they feel like if I drop this schedule, then I'm not, you know, valuable, worthy, a contributing member of society. Something we did in our neighborhood is like just sit in the driveway outside. And then our neighbors started doing that. And then we get to actually talk with each other and then we get to know each other. And then the kids are able to run around the neighborhood
yes.
and not and feel safe. And we can know that at the different houses that they're stopping at, it's safe. Um, so
But do
many
you think
people
some of
aren't
that
doing
happened
that.
during, I know, some of that happened during COVID after the
Yeah.
initial scare, where people
Yeah.
were still at home and school wasn't open, and they started doing stuff with their kids, like making chalk games and playing
Yeah.
games they never played or making up games. And it was very hard to sort of get with your neighbor because of the virus. You were like afraid. You don't want to give it to your elderly neighbor. You don't want to, you know, but I think that inward time, though there's a lot of anxiety and angst, do you think it became a time that families could redesign and kind of prioritize their relationships?
Yeah, I think when you stop commuting for hours a day to your office or your job, you're like, whoa, I have some time. And
Yeah.
I actually, you know, have been kind of locked in the house with these people. Whoa, there's not really any intimacy here. We don't really know each other. We're not connected. We're all on our devices and separate and just passing the time because to build the intimacy, it can be scary. Like a lot of parents are still emotionally children. Their inner child is still running the show. They have a lot of unprocessed pain and trauma. And even if it's, you know, minute or acute trauma, it's still stuff that like the way that they have learned to relate to their child is to be like a child should be seen and not heard. My child's emotions don't matter. Like, we just need to gloss over that, and you need to fall in line and do what you're told. And it's like, well, to have a child be pushed to call somebody a mother who they don't see as a mother, to have a child be pushed to hug a relative that they don't feel comfortable hugging. Like, the last thing we want to teach our kids is to let somebody touch them when they don't feel safe about it.
Well, I think you point out a lot of things, and I think that we as parents need to, it's just like saying, when people say you can't love another until you love yourself. Well, we're a work in progress. And so first and foremost, parents are humans, and whatever trauma or positive experience they had in their childhood, whatever shaped them right now, they need to address. Sweeping it under the rug and saying, I'll just have another glass of Chardonnay, it'll go away. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
And there's so much more information about how any alcohol at all today kills a bunch of brain cells that you don't want to do. I mean, it used to be moderate. I saw somebody talking about, the wine industry played for that when they said red wine was so good for your heart, right? And but it's a drug that you get addicted to, and it does all other kinds of things to your body. Oh, you can still do it moderately. Now people are saying you can't. So I think that, when people try to balance their past and their present, or they're putting on a face, like you're saying, okay, well, I'm going to be like the perfect mom. I'm going to pick up on time. I'm going to bake the cookies. I'm going to be staying up all night between my work, school, and the kids. I don't even get to breathe, but that's okay. So parents need to dial it back, because if you wear yourself down, you're no good for anybody. And if you haven't dealt with those traumas, call the helpline. There are trained counselors on there. You can talk about anything you need to talk about. It's, we can give people referrals, but our main thing is here to listen. And parents don't feel listened to. Oh, I never told anybody that. But people call us and say, I never told anybody that, but I need to tell somebody, and let me process that. And it's the beginning of opening up that door, you say, that's so scary. People don't want to open the door. They just want to forget about it. It's very interesting, even when people disclose that they've had a traumatic childhood, and then they just want to brush it under the rug. One of my favorite cookbook authors, cooks, is Ina Garten. She just published a book about how abusive her father was, how he hit her, how he put her down, how he and her brother lived in their rooms and never left. Their rooms barely. But when I saw her in an interview, she said, but I want to show how I become this very famous chef, which is great. So you find out, like an Olympian. This was really great. When they focus on this person, they worked hard to become a shot putter, a basketball, whatever it was. And then they tell you about their childhood. You go, oh my God, they had this very traumatic childhood. And you say, wow, that's great that they were able to deal with that, get over that, et cetera, et cetera. But they weren't running away from it either. So everybody's story has meaning. But anything you sweep under the rug, all it does is come out somewhere else.
It does.
I used to have this saying, don't try to go around it. Don't try to go over it. Try to move through it in small pieces, because getting up, getting your kids to school, going to work, trying to have a smile on your face, trying to enjoy the little things, that's successful. That's success of a human being. We cannot beat ourselves up. It's only if I get this job and I get this degree and I get that salary and I get this pair of shoes. No, these are all material things.
Yeah, and you don't take them with you. So
exactly, you don't take it with you. And also, we have to be careful with our kids, pushing them so much. And the old saying about praise doesn't make anybody happy. It's like the whole idea of chasing happiness. All the time you're chasing happiness, you're just saying I'm unhappy, and you're more unhappy than you ever were. And it's a great psychiatrist who does a whole video on the plasticity of the brain. But the essence was, if I keep saying I'm not happy enough because I'm keep chasing this, I'm never happy. I'm never satisfied. It's like learning to love thyself. Well, that's easy to say, hard to do. How do you do these things?
Well, we're not taught how to do that. So like, I certainly found myself chasing all these items and these accomplishments, and then not celebrating when I reached them, and then just finding, oh, I've got to keep reaching outside of myself. And then at some point you hit some kind of glass ceiling, which is your own self-worth, basically. And you discover, oh my gosh, I can keep chasing all these things and I'm still never going to be present in my life. I'm just getting more and more stressed and burnt out. So now I have to figure out why I'm not feeling fulfilled from within, because I've got to feel that before I can even enjoy the money that I'm making. Otherwise, I'm making it, but I'm not even present for it.
Exactly. And that's one of the things we talk about with parents a lot, the sort of difference between self-esteem and self-confidence. What you want to focus, self-esteem is me saying, oh, you're prettier, your house is nicer, your shoes are better. Ooh, you've accomplished more than me. I'm comparing myself to others. Self-confidence is me setting up goals for myself wherever I am, if I'm a kid or I'm a teen or an adult or a young adult or a parent or grandma. I'm setting goals for myself and I'm working on those goals and realize there's an up and a down for those over time. And that's where self-confidence comes from within. So when the next thing happens, I'm able to handle it. It's like words really matter. I mean, you make a really good point because if your self-talk is I'm not good enough, I haven't made enough, you're just going to be extremely depressed person and extremely
Yeah.
anxious. Anxiety, when people say, oh, I'm socially anxious, I'm this anxious, I'm that, I'm okay. Well, you got to find some adaptability in all that. And the first thing is your own self-talk. So if you start the day with affirmations, I am smart, I am loving friend, I am a loving mother, brother, whatever, and say that 21 times, it imprints in your brain. It's just like a hug. Oxytocin does not release because my husband hugs me for a second. No, he got to hug me for 21 seconds because it takes that long for the oxytocin in your brain to get released. It's like smiling and laughing. These are things we talk about in Parents Anonymous groups all the time. Even if you don't feel like laughing, fake laughing does the same thing to the brain as real laughing. And they've done studies.
Yeah.
And these are
Yeah.
simple things. Like you have a beautiful smile right now. And sometimes I got to remind myself I'm on Zoom all day long and I'm working like all these crazy hours. And I'm like, oh, did I smile today? Did I laugh? Did I find 5 minutes to go outside, walk around the block and come back? Because a lot of people are still working at home or even at the office. I make an excuse. I'm going to get a coffee. I'm going to go get some juice or something. Let me walk around downtown so I can be outside because we know in nature it has a calming effect. It's very good. So yes, some people have to take medication. Some people need higher levels of intervention because but these are all preventative things we could do with our kids. Why can't we take a walk after dinner? First of all, you'll help digest your food better after a meal. Okay, even if it's a 10-minute walk, and it'll help reduce blood sugar spikes and things like that instead of lying down because you get sleepy after dinner because the oxygen is used to digest your food. So we took a walk last night, my husband and I said, oh no, it's dark, but we're going to hold hands. And if we need a flashlight, we'll even use a flashlight. Because sometimes they're not good street lights and you want to make sure that you don't trip and fall or anything.
Yeah.
These are all things that I think people know and they can make their own traditions, whether it's a holiday coming up or what is important in your family to feel united and feel satisfied. And that's scary. Like when you're on the grind and you stop and say, wow, am I happy? Am I satisfied? Do I feel like I've done something worthwhile? Have I been present? I mean, you use that word a lot, and I think that's a really important thing is like we live in our heads a lot. Sometimes we're in a social environment and we're just like maybe quiet. Are we taking in things? Are we present? It's like mindfulness is a great technique. First of all, you can do it with spices. You can walk down the street, not talk, look at everything, look at every shape and everything. It really releases tension. So all these things, tricks of the trade, people can learn tapping. There's all kinds of things people can do to ground themselves when they're worried or anxious, and don't ignore the little stuff. I find in life in general, the little stuff adds up to be the big stuff,
Oh
and
yeah.
and you're like thinking like, no, you're wearing wrong appropriate clothes to school. Well, why are we it's one thing to have your own style. Like my mother used to joke, don't worry, they're not going to wear their pajamas to their wedding, And are you going to make a big deal if they're going to, when Emma was in preschool, I think once she did wear a pajama top to school and I just let her, but she was 5 years old or something.
Yeah.
I remember when boys were wearing the baggy pants, the pants, I told my son, you're not going to school like that because you will. And the reason I told him is not like, oh, I don't think that's cool. I said, you will be judged by teachers and your other classmates a certain way if you dress that way. So what is the message you want to send? So if you want to, it's just like even when kids are fighting, to go in and keep telling the 5-year-old, stop hitting your brother. Well, that doesn't really work very well. Just pick up the other child, tell them they're safe, and hold them and show what love and support is. I will guarantee you that other child who's fighting with them is going to observe that behavior and pull back and deal with what's going on, either start crying, oh, I love my brother, I don't know what to. If you go in with all this direction, kids don't hear it. They're fighting back from whatever's going on in them, and you need to find a way around it. It's like keeping all the plugs covered when you got toddlers, right? Don't take a chance, making sure the chemicals are locked. Remember, we used to have those little clips that were like really
Yeah.
weird on your cabinets because the kids couldn't get them open. Like in California, we have to have, if you have a pool, you have to have a certain high fence, whether you have a child or not, because any child could get into your yard and get into that pool. So you have to have a certain, so those safety things that we've learned, like wearing a seatbelt, is preventative. And I think we as parents need to figure out what are those things that bring us joy, not every 5 seconds, but feels that we're fulfilled. Or if we want to change directions in our life, the same thing with kids. They think they're going to college and they're going to tech school. They want to take off. They want to do this. They don't like this school. This is a big one. A lot of bullying going on in school. I know this woman, she said, I just took my kid out. I'm homeschooling him. I said, did you consider going to another school? And she said, yes, I thought about that, but that didn't fit for my family. So she's got to rearrange her entire work. There's a whole, school-based learning, home-based learning. There's like all these associations you can join and they can give it to you. And the kids still come in maybe once a week or whatever. But it's like being an advocate for your health. If the doctor says you got something the matter, the next thing is, please, you know what I said? Please explain that to me. What does that mean? What is the treatment plan? Could you write that down? I had an oncologist once, she's give me your paper, Dr. Lisa. And she was writing down my notes to me because she was just filling me with all this information and I just couldn't take it all in, And, so I think there's so many things in life that, and watching your children grow and develop, it's a joyful, it should be a joyful, but it definitely has challenges to it, and how people want to parent and if their relationships have stayed together, are they breaking up the parents are breaking up, and what does that mean for everybody? There's a lot of pressure. 51% of marriages end up in divorce. I think it's maybe like 54% now. And so people are dealing with all the challenges of every day. But that's why, we keep promoting through our Google ads and our websites. We have a relaxation room on our Parents Anonymous website and the Helpline website. You can go on there and listen to free meditations in English and Spanish. They're on there for you. Kids can listen to it. There's also information you could read about. And, as I say, asking questions, seeking support. A friend might give you some ideas that doesn't fit for you. So it might fit for them and you don't think it'll fit for your child. And a lot of kids, sometimes they seem very shut down. They don't want to talk about it. And we as parents need to create that sort of safe space. So I always give an example to parents is like, let's say your kid just started middle school. How was your day? Fine, right?
Yes.
It's like, no, tell me something silly that happened today. What was fun? What was fun? What was something that was different? Did you fall asleep in class? What's happening with you? Instead of feeling like it's an interrogation, but you can always use yourself an example. When I started middle school, which for me was called junior high, in the old days, some schools still call it junior high, right? It was like, oh my God, I thought we were the cat's meow. We went to the big school. We weren't in the baby school anymore. But boy, that meant, I had to learn the ropes of changing classes and other things, walking a farther distance to school, and being around all these kids I hadn't known through elementary school because the elementary schools came together and all these kids went to middle school. And that was scary for me. I always feel like I had friends, So sharing about your own experience with your children sets a level playing field for them to open up and create that safe space for them. Because what you want to do is they don't tell you. the stuff going
Yeah.
on. Bullying,
No.
even more of the relationship pressures. Oh my goodness. Or the drugs in the schools, frightening, frightening.
Yeah.
We
And a
have,
lot of times they don't realize that something that might be going on is a problem because they may be used to a certain way of communicating in the household or something. And so, like, I've just divorced and I don't like the way that their dad communicates. And so I do it a different way. And because they're used to that way of communicating, they think it's acceptable. I'm not saying that it isn't. It isn't acceptable to me. But
right,
so asking more questions, like they actually do want to tell you, but you might have to go a little deeper with the question, like, how's your, I could say how's school, but like I asked my daughter because she just started middle school, how's the workload? Does it
right,
feel like it's a lot? Does it feel like I don't want to lead her and tell her how to answer, but like clarifying, is it a lot? Is it manageable? Is it easy? How are you feeling about it? And then she'll give me all kinds of more information about it. And then
right.
she'll ask me to be involved in one of her assignments or help her. And
Exactly.
yeah, it's really
So
nice
opening
to,
that door is really good. But you bring up a very important thing. We get a lot of parents calling the helpline talking about their co-parenting problems. We're not on the same page. Maybe that
yeah,
whether it was the reason they got divorced or not. And they're struggling with that there are other adults involved because the other people might have now different partners, and figuring out the main parents are the ones setting the tone and how you negotiate with that other person and how there could be a contradiction. Oh, dad said I could do that. No, no, and so that's tough. And if you can't work out all the co-parenting parameters, right? Because like you said, somebody has a different communication style, you have to figure out how you can balance that. And
yeah,
that's really tough. But I think that's a great idea about opening the door. That's why I say share about your own experiences. Oh my God, we had a softball team in high school. It was like first time girls could be like on a team, and it was like your kids thinking like, what's she talking about? Yes, long time ago. And just like even going to the gym and going to gym class when you had to change clothes. Because in elementary
yeah,
school, I believe we never changed clothes, but in middle school, you had to be like in the lockers, and everybody's like self-conscious. And how are you prepared for that? And if you're a
yeah,
girl, you might have other issues. So sharing that, hey, I hear you. How was that? I'm here for
yeah,
I've experienced it also. And that doesn't mean you have to give all the details of what it is, just sharing that, yeah, sometimes I felt uncomfortable in school. And so I sat down with my friends or my mom or my dad and talked about it, or I found a teacher that I could talk to. And you just want to make sure you want to keep that door open. I used to say to my kids, I am your first call. You call dad or me. I don't care what happens. I don't care if you've done something wrong, something right, there's been an accident, whatever it is, you're to call me. I am
yeah,
here. I am your support system, because you don't want them to make decisions in a crisis that could be the wrong decision. Even when they're
right,
in college and somebody's used drugs and somebody thinks they should put the person in a car and drive to the hospital, you don't pick up anybody. You call 911, or on campuses, they have the emergency phones. And most campuses have no fault, no fault. They're just like coming to get that person who may be out. They don't even know maybe what they took. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
There's plenty of fentanyl around and other kinds of drugs that are look like candy in schools of all kinds. And we didn't have Snapchat. My kids are older, but the things that people can do, buy certain things on, wait, what is Snapchat? You can buy a pill on? Oh my God. And people thought,
wow,
and many kids have died. Our opioid
yeah.
crisis is really terrible. But
I
I
think
think
it's
that,
also
go ahead.
important to not try to necessarily shield kids from the truth. Like when I was a teenager, I had grown up in a very controlling, strict religious environment. And because I was never allowed to express my emotions, I wasn't allowed to, as a female, we were basically taught that we were less than. Um, I moved out at 15. I was like, I can't handle this. And I did drugs and I partied, and I share with my kids the how it made me feel, who I became, the choices that I made, and what wasn't beneficial about it. Like, I have parents who recently were talking about, oh, I don't tell my kids that because then they use it against me. And I'm like, well, it's not really about using it against you. It's more of about, no, I know what's going on at school. It hasn't changed that much. Like, we're
Right.
still going to parties and drugs are available. And here's what happened. I was sexually assaulted. I was this or that. Like, we don't want to just take things that people are offering us. Like, use healthy discernment. My daughter was invited to a party and she had the discernment to be like, you know what, I'm a sixth grader, it's all eighth graders, I think I'm actually not going to go. And I was like, great,
Good.
because I didn't want her to go, but I wasn't going to tell her no. I was going to let her see, but I just could tell that she wasn't going to end up going. She was saying she was going, and then she didn't end up. And I was like, okay, that's good information for me. I know that she has a healthy amount of discernment. Like, she's thinking about it, she's feeling into it. Safety is her priority. She values herself enough to want to be safe. And
That's really important because especially in middle school, that's everybody, everybody hugs, everybody loves each other. They're not in high school yet. And my daughter would come, I said, you need to keep your ears and eyes open. Everybody is not appropriately going to be hugging you, and everything is not. If you don't feel comfortable, you need to know what that boundary is. And
yeah,
I'm sorry that you had this experience of being assaulted, but I think sharing these things with kids is really important. I mean, I think holding back and make it sound like you've never experienced any of these, this has shaped who you are, and it creates this openness for this connection with her. And we're not in a competition with our kids about what they're going to hold against me. What was that? They're either listening or
yeah,
understanding. And of course, you want to be appropriate. You wouldn't have that conversation with a 6-year-old. You're talking about, a teen. And
yeah,
so knowing, I remember at 9/11, I went to pick my daughter up in preschool. Of course, it was crisis galore. And this mother was screaming and yelling. And I said to somebody, watch her, my daughter. I'm going to take her outside. Well, I'm a therapist. I take her outside. I said, let's breathe together. Let's hold hands. Let's breathe. We are in a crisis, but we're safe. We're in Southern California. We're not in New York. We're not at the
yeah,
Pentagon. Okay. We're not on that airplane. Just breathe, because you need to drive home safely with your child. Can you drive home? And we did this breathing. I did this in 2 counts, out 4, because that makes your vagus nerve in sight, and that makes you
yeah,
calm. And I said, I hear you. The pictures on TV, turn off the TV. Remember how they just kept showing the explosions?
yes,
And you don't want
over
your
and
kids to
over.
see it. But even me, it was too much. I
Yeah,
had a sister on her way to New York. I had a cousin in New York. My husband was in DC when the Pentagon exploded. He was not at the Pentagon. He was downtown DC. So I was worried about all these other people. But, I think that openness that you're talking about is the way to stay eyes on the prize. Your kid changes their sleeping habits. All of a sudden, they're not hanging out with any friends. All of a sudden, they're what? And also, I really suggest that parents put restrictions on social media.
yeah, it can be
Make
really
sure everybody
damaging.
turns their phone off, is charging it in the kitchen, and not looking at their phone in the middle of the night. And also, the amber light from phones is not good. Now, I have an Android phone and I can charge it while it's turned off. But I know it's something with the Apple phone, which I don't have, and just everybody put it in the kitchen so nobody's looking at it in the middle. People start scrolling their mind, and their mind, adults too. Oh, the puppy dog,
Yeah,
the kitty cats, whatever it is. And 45 minutes go by and they have had no human interaction.
yeah, and no sleep if you're doing it in the middle of the night. Like, that's
Oh
not
yeah.
the way to get back to sleep.
And
Try
kids,
mouth taping, try meditation.
exactly. And kids need more and more sleep, you know.
Yeah,
Adult needs sleep, but everybody needs to, like, having general rules. No phones at the dinner table. The parents,
yeah,
even my adult children say, oh, you're using your phone a lot, No, when we're out, put it away, leave it at home, Obviously, if you're on call for something with your work, that may be a special circumstance, but trying to model for your children what you're talking about. So your openness, you're teaching your daughter. And so she, even though she's only 10 or 12, right?
11. Yeah,
11, she said, so she's in a middle school as a sixth grader, right? So
Yeah.
she's sixth, seventh, and eighth. Oh yeah, that's a big difference between that 11-year-old and that like 13, 14-year-old.
Yeah.
In those middle schools. And a lot of parents, I don't like the middle schools. They like when the middle school is like 6, 7, not 6, 7, 8. It's like you go to the high school. I remember first time I went over to the high school, I said, who are those people? I said, well, those are the seniors, I guess. I said, they look really tall. They look
Yeah.
really and people shoot up in their size and everything. And it's like, wow, you're a freshman and look at those. It's a 4-year difference. It's not 3 years, it's 4 years. And
Yeah.
but I think continually having those conversations and having them look at the pros and cons. It's not that what she would feel comfortable with or not. And the peer pressure is real. Oh,
Oh
you're not
yeah.
going to that party. What's the matter with you? Why
Hmm.
aren't you going? All the cool kids are going to be there. I don't even know if they use cool anymore. But you know what I'm saying? It's the
Yeah.
pressure to go along with others and to learn that independent thinking is what needs to be valued. And I think as you
Yeah.
model that as an independent person, as an adult with your children, I had to face with those choices. Somebody made a remark. It was insulting remark. I wasn't standing for it. I'm going to say that's insulting, and I'm going to leave the table now. I'm not going to be around you because if we tolerate bullying or prejudice as adults, then we're just teaching our children. Oh, we just laughed it off. Oh, it's nothing. It isn't anything.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
hurtful. It's painful, and it's just not appropriate. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, I just slipped up and made that comment. No, 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 no. You made it. You could say, oh, I didn't mean to say that. Oh, I said it in a way that
That came out wrong.
came
Yeah.
out wrong. But I'm
Yeah.
talking about when people are just, picking on people's work, pointing out things about people in different environments that are very inappropriate, even in school, it's happening to these kids. They just, and I think these kids are just very pressured to either ignore, run away, or the pressure to join in, the pressure
Yeah.
to
And you've mentioned more than once people thinking that sweeping things under the rug is going to work. Oh, it's not that serious because it's an avoidance of actually feeling their feelings. They've got an inner child part that's a protector that says, you're going to die if you feel that, feeling from that memory of whenever. And it's like, actually, as an adult, when you go and revisit it and you feel the feeling, you definitely are nowhere near death. Like you can now reassure that inner child part that, oh my gosh, we're safe. We're over here. Things are different now, and kind of reparent we're having to reparent ourselves while we're parenting children. So to have this kind of support from the helpline,
and
like
in the group.
how
And in the
yeah.
groups, I mean, we start with meditation and we talk about people digging deep. If you don't deal with your underlying emotions, you'll never change those behaviors.
That's
So I
right.
want to stop eating chocolate. I want to fix my career. I want to improve my communication with my child. Well, what is that communication like? And what does that feel like for you underneath? And that's like fear, loss, the deep seat of it. Not like I'm pissed off. Being pissed off as a parent or adult is just an outward expression of something really going on inside. That's really sadness or loss or other things. And that takes a lot of courage. So in a group, which creates a supportive environment with a trained group facilitator, people don't know each other outside a group. It's totally confidential. And they're encouraged. Some person starts crying or talking about this breakup or whatever. And people are there to support one another. So we talk about in Parent Psalms, in the giving you get. If I drop my groceries in front of you, what would you do?
Help you pick them up.
You'd actually start picking them up for me, right? How would that
Yeah.
make you feel? Don't think too hard. How would it make you feel?
Just like easy, like
It would make you feel good.
nice. Yeah.
So that's what we say. In the giving we get. When you reach out to another, smile at somebody. If they don't smile back, it's okay because you smile. If you open the door for somebody, it makes everybody feel good. If you pick up my groceries, well, I feel like, hey, I got to help her here. I'm going to secondarily benefit, but you in the giving get. So that's not becoming a carpet that everybody steps on and you volunteer for everything and you run over. Okay. I'm talking about in the day-to-day life about how you balance that role you have as a human being. So people come to group and they reach out to one another. I hear you, not to give advice, but to give support. We don't value enough in this country emotional support. That's what the helpline is all about and the groups. emotional support. Now, it also is a point where people say, hey, you've been coming to group for like 4 weeks. You said you were going to look into that job training program. What's getting in the way? So
Yeah.
we get in our own way, right? Oh, I can't
Yeah.
stop eating sugar because I'm up all night, or I can't. We all have a lot of excuses. So group gets real, what we call in shared leadership, where there's accountability. You're coming to this group, people are celebrating the small successes, the big successes. And when you need to cry, let it out. You need to scream, let it out. This mom came to group and she said, my son, I won't tell him why we're getting divorced. And everybody said, well, why? Because he doesn't realize that his father has been beating me on and off for years. And everybody said in the group said, really? He probably already knows. I mean, this
Yeah, he
child was
knows.
like 12.
Yeah.
But the mom was trying to protect the son. So the son was mad at her because she never really explained why they were breaking up. And the son felt in between and torn by these two parents over and over again. And she needed to really, and she kind of giggled about it. And people looked at her. It's like, well, she was just covering up the feelings she really had. So when she,
Yeah.
she was mad at herself for not leaving him earlier, mad at herself for maybe not calling the police, mad at herself, guilt that she was not able to get away from the situation. I mean, there's so many feelings that people
Oh,
think,
yeah.
oh, why are they still together if that's the problem? Do you understand the psychological nature of a relationship where there's threats and violence and financial dependence and I'm going to twist this, or, marital rape, and you name it, on and on and
Yeah.
on and on. It's much more complicated than you saying, oh, well, if that's just a bad person, they should just leave. Well, maybe
Yeah, it's
they're going to pull a gun on them.
right. And the psychological effects, you start to believe you're with this partner, you start to believe, oh, there must actually be something wrong with me. I'm causing this somehow. So you stay long enough, and the more you believe that, and the deeper it becomes, and the harder it becomes to extract yourself. And I think a lot of times we think that what we tell our kids, like you were saying, they don't want to be directed. They don't want to be talked at and given orders to. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants an authoritarian barking orders at them. But our kids are becoming what we are modeling to them, regardless of what we're saying. So we might be telling them everything's cool here. They can feel the energy, they can feel the tension, and they will become what we are. So if I don't like the way that my daughter's dad speaks to her, I know that she's going to pick a guy like that, because, and so I'm feeling all of that and like, okay, how do I kind of counteract that? How do I address that right now? How do I teach her to expect someone to speak to her in a way that is respectful? And that's a journey.
There might be a point where you can support her saying to him, Dad, the way you're talking to me is a put down, is not helpful, and I don't want to have this conversation anymore. Well, I'm your father. I can have any conversation you want. Yeah, I understand that. But you know what? I'm not going to be listening because it's too hurtful and you need to find another way of talking. So kids, as they get older, can set a boundary. But I will say, we might not teach in this, but most kids need some clear expectations about their life. They need to know they can depend on their parent no matter what, and that there are that there's skin in the game, that there's some expectation to talk respectfully to one another. Even if you're going to cry and you're upset and you're yelling and screaming, okay, I get that. Well, when you're over that, like, where are we at? Some basic things that, because kids do better when there are expectations. They do better when they know there's something they're falling back on, because there's a lot of conversations about different kind of parenting, right? The totally, the helicopter parent from the totally loosey-goosey, whatever you do is cool with me, and wait a minute, either of these extremes seem like too much to me, if you do your kids' homework for them and they don't learn it themselves, they're going to be an adult who's never going to be successful. It's absolute proof. Hard work is the greatest, and chores, which were hard work, and compliments about the hard work and the effort. Put your effort into, look how much you put into that project. That's fabulous. Not, you got the best thing, you're going to win the first prize. Because when I don't win first prize, I'm going to feel inadequate.
Right.
Try the next time, because all that unnecessary praise instead of acknowledgement of what it takes. Einstein did not develop the theory of relativity like that. Actually, he worked as a draftsman And he had the brain power to maybe study physics and things like that, but it took him a long, long time. And he worked very, very hard. Nobody just like, oh, we're gonna build a rocket. We're just gonna make that up, all that hard work. And when kids realize what hard work you do as a parent to succeed, they understand that life is very complicated, and that kind of hard work and that effort, meaning you're not going to always be picked for the right team. You're not going to be, I used to think team sports for my kids was a good thing because it was a reflective of life. You're not always going to get the best grade, the best boyfriend, the best job, the best house, the best car, and you're not going to be picked. And there's a balance because there are many people on the team, and the coach is deciding, well, I need this person for that, and this person has this strengths or that. But you can grow in that. I used to tell my kids, ask the coach, what can I do so that I can be playing more, whatever it is, water polo, swimming, basketball, whatever. And maybe you don't have the talent for it, but you can put in the effort towards that. Instead of saying, I'm just walking around moping because the coach never uses me and I don't know why I'm on the team and blah, blah, blah. Poor me.
Yeah. And then
And
tying
also
your
poor me,
self-worth to
right, is totally tied towards that negative self-talk. And even affirmations that say, I am a successful mother. Well, I don't feel successful today. Still say it 21 times and print it in your brain, because an affirmation is not like, I will be happy. I am happy if you want to use that one. I'm knowing what I feel, whatever you want to use, you want it to be a positive thing, not like, well, it may happen, but it depends on this. And do I get the job and I get the salary I want? And then I can go on the, no. Affirmations is training your brain to focus in a way that's going to change your attitude,
Yeah.
and it's really the small stuff really matters. And, we as parents, sometimes we got to apologize. We're just having a terrible day and it's not coming out right. And, and it's like, I said, sometimes I say, I'm going on my own timeout. I'm going to go in the bedroom. I need 5 minutes. It depends on how old your kids are. Can they leave you alone for 5 minutes, right?
Right.
Maybe it's 10 or maybe it's 15. And, even when you start a conversation with people, say, how are you? How are you today? How's your day? Not in a fakey way, like when you go to the store. How's your day? Great. You want to know how crappy it is? You're a stranger. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Yeah.
But, with your own kids to say, so they get to the point where they're saying to you, how's your day, mom? How's your day, dad? What's going on with you?
And having a genuine conversation, not just a shallow.
You're talking about human connection, that real human connection. And that lasts from childhood forward to adulthood. You and I will be mothers to the day they put us in the ground. That never changes how old my children, doesn't matter what my children are. I will always be Jeremy and Emma's mother, period. Dave will always be their father. And that's something, I feel near and dear to me, no matter how old they are and at different stages. Kissing a boo-boo was fine. When they get older, no kissing boo-boos. It's more complicated issues, right?
Yeah.
And, coming into their own about who they are and the pressures at school, at work, and life. We need to be there for people in a way that's supportive on an emotional level and really be present for people. And I'm not saying be a therapist when you're not a therapist. I'm saying tell people that I'm here for you. I hear you. You really need to seek some additional help. You can call the helpline. You can go see a therapist, but I'm here for you, but you've been talking about this for weeks and you need to take that step, because sometimes there's a waiting list to see somebody, whether it's a mental health professional or a physician, or get your child into a tutor that's reasonable, or maybe there's a waiting list at your school for the math tutors that are free. Some of these things that cost money still have waiting lists. And it's not like all this stuff is, you live in a rural community. You talked about it, in Lake Tahoe, in a mountainous community where there are less people, there are less services too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, parents can't drive 2 hours to get services.
Right.
It's possible, and work and live and cook and clean and sleep. It's just impossible. So
it's wonderful to have a resource like this, like Parents Anonymous, where you can call, on your time and actually get that support. And sometimes it's just being heard without somebody.
And for anybody in California, we have online groups, and they're mostly in the evening. And they're 2 hours and they're free and they're done online. So we have some groups that have no barrier to where you live in California, which is great. We have other face-to-face groups in Los Angeles County that you have to live in a specific area, and that's where the funding is, okay? But we want to do more and more online. When gas went up to $7, I mean, think about somebody, okay, I'm going to buy dinner or put gas in my car, right? Those choices that parents had to make was just incredible because pricing was going up so high. So the fact you can go to an online group as long as you're in your headphones, you're in a private space, really, and it doesn't cost any money. We don't charge anybody.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, thank you for being on today, Dr. Lisa. We're on at time, and we will have the links in the show notes of the episode. And I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.
And what you're doing. Yeah.
And listen, keep your podcast up. I think it's great.